Hello, welcome to the Sutliffian Report. Today we have a lot going on. Uh, we're going to be talking about Shariah, and again, we're in, I'd say, part two of the funeral book, and I'm hoping if we're somehow able to rush through this. Uh, I don't think it's easy to rush through. We may end up having to do another partial day of this. This is I would think it would be a tough topic and a serious topic when we're talking about death. But the topic is fraught with problems, and some of them are sadly humorous. Just like they glorify death, and yet they don't seem to understand what that means. So we're going to be going through this, and it should be something that stands out. I'm going to ask that you share this out because I was doing things at the last moment. So please share this out to your Facebook, to your Twitter accounts, wherever, because that's one of the things I didn't do because I was rushing out to get things done. I'll end up doing that later, but if you guys could just share this out in any way you could, I'd really appreciate that. Hit that like button. And Larry did ask this important question, and I'll do that before I get into the devotions. It says, I'm out of the social loop. What's the latest on Hatun? Has anyone heard from her? Is she okay? I haven't heard anything. And because I ask Usama every once in a while, and nothing. And Darcy, I don't know who you've heard from, but Darcy said she heard. I don't know more than that's pretty much what I've heard, Darcy, so I haven't heard any more.
Right. That's the only update I had from months ago.
Yeah, that's the only. I'm still not sure. Oh, Usama told you. Okay. All right, that's good. I'm just concerned because I haven't heard and I just haven't asked again, so I'll check. So that must mean if Usama told you, that must mean he's actually talked to her, because last time I asked, she hadn't really talked to him. So all right, that's a good thing. Thank you, God. I've actually been worried about that. I know my church group is actually praying for her that she'll be able to get through whatever she's going through. It's a tough thing to go through life and fight it, and that's the reality of the world we face. Sometimes you have to face it and be ready to fight. Well, as I start this, I always start with a reading from God's Word, and today we're starting in 2 Kings 4:8-17, and I'm reading again 2 Kings 4:8-17. And it fell on the day that Elisha passed to Shunem. There was a great woman, and she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was as often as he passed by, he turned in there to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, Behold now, I perceive that this is a holy man of God, which passes by us continually. Let's make a little chamber, and I pray you on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be when he comes to us that he shall turn in there. And it fell on a day that he came there, and he turned into the chamber, and he lay there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, Call this Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him, and he said, And tell me, you've been careful with all this care. What's to be done for you? Would you be spoken for to the king or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among my own people. And he said, Well, what should we do for her? And Gehazi, his servant, answered, She has no child, and her husband's old. And he said, Call her. And when he called her, she stood in the door, and he said, About this season, according to this time of life, you shall embrace his son. And she said, Nay, my lord, you man of God, don't lie to your handmaid. And the woman conceived and bare a son at the season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life. This should sound kind of familiar to people. When you think about the story of Elizabeth, and you think about the story of Abraham and Sarah, you sit there like, okay. You hear those stories, and it kind of sound familiar. But again, each time it's God acting. So this is what I wrote on this. This passage is more about the Shunammite woman than about Elisha. She's so humble in life that may be why her name is never mentioned. She seems to do what she believes is right. She observes Elisha, the prophet of the living God, regularly passing through. She must have done some research to learn how far his travels were before getting the idea to have a place built for him. There's a special element here in her request to build a place just for him. She creates a place that is not only just for him, it allows him the solitude he may need to commune with God. It's a place of little or no distractions, and none can enter. A lot of thought appears to have gone into this little place made for him. When Elisha sees all that's done for him and enjoys a night's sleep, he recognizes something should be done for such a thoughtful person. He inquires of what should be done for her. His first thoughts is she must want something. And you think about us as individuals. That's what we would be thinking. This woman said she had no need and placed nothing before him. She gave him a gift, expecting nothing in return. Elisha dug a little deeper. He learned she had no child, and then calls her in prophecy she will have a child. And that comes to pass. She conceives and bears a child. What a joy this woman could claim for doing something she just saw as something that she should do. You know, I think about scriptures like this, and it's exciting. I mean, you get a gift. You think about this. You get a gift, or you give a gift, and you generally, when you give a gift, you don't expect anything in return. When you get a gift, you feel like you need to give something back. Well, sometimes the hard part is you have to recognize that person really doesn't want anything in return. And that's sometimes very humbling. And you don't know how to take that. And I think that you just have to recognize that one of the ways God works is he does say, guess what? I told them to give to you. You have to be willing to accept. And it's a tough lesson to learn. Now, we have quite the hope here in dream, I should say, in trying to finish this up today. And if this gets too small, people let me know. We're going to cover, hopefully, the end of the funeral book part of the Reliance of the Traveler. I think this is actually one of the shorter sections of Shariah, so we might be able to do it today, or we might go into a next section. But the one after this is Zakat, and I really enjoy going through that part. So here we go. And if I put my mouse in the right spot, it might help. So I just wanted to review that there's no rush in care for the dead. And, you know, I have to say, I'd heard someplace along the line, I had been told there was a rush to care for the dead. And, you know, like, here's something that's interesting in this. In the Shariah we read last week, you can let someone be until they stink of rot, because then you know they're dead. That stuff, that one will never cease to amaze me. Keep that one in mind. So I'm going to pull up Islam Q&A, and I want to share this with you just because I had questions. I mean, take a look. This is a guy whose father passed away while on Hajj. This is from his knowledge. He has all these questions, right? And about the timing. As soon as put to the deceased in the grave from the end, then he should be turned onto his right side in the grave with his face directed towards the Qibla. All right, we've kind of talked about this a little bit. We'll have more on this today. The one who puts them in the niche, it's recommended for those who are all at the grave, throw handfuls of earth, 3 handfuls. We're going to be reading about that a little later. And hit the mouse in the right spot. There we go. You start thinking about this. Okay, so the biggest concern on all of this that I found is their biggest concern is that you. Here it is. Here's the other one I wanted to bring up. The hasten to bury the dead. Here we go. This is the one I was actually looking for. Sorry. I'll raise the print on this. That is hard to read. That better? Okay. I mean, I had heard they had to hasten. All right. That's the thing I was told. And it says here, it is from the Sunnah. to hasten the burial of the deceased due to the hadiths that indicate this. Such a hadith: when one of you passes away, do not keep his body for long, and take him quickly to the grave. Wait a minute. Okay, so here I am looking for this, and I'm having some. If anybody finds anything in the Sunnah, in the hadith that verifies this, because I've been looking and I really haven't seen anything, maybe I missed it, that has a rush on hastening to get people into the grave. I've looked, and I've been looking through the Sunnah.com. I'm just kind of surprised. Maybe I'm missing it. Again, he said there's a hadith here, and he says it's by At-Tabarani. I'm just kind of surprised that there's that comment, and I have yet to truthfully find it. So I don't see anything that kind of backs it up. And then there's an order: who can and should care for a dead person. That's kind of where we were at, and it gets a little bit interesting now. We're getting into the description of the funeral prayer. This is the part that I have to say started to get me. Islam does not call itself baby Catholicism, young Catholicism or anything. Doesn't consider itself close to that. What we're going to learn about today is they're praying for the dead person, that their sins are forgiven. Okay, we're talking about purgatory. That is a Catholic doctrine, and it just makes you wonder where they got the idea they can pray somebody out. Gnosticism could kind of accept this. It just makes you start to think. So I'm going to, Darcy, would you mind reading first today?
Sure. Description of the funeral prayer. Then one intends to perform the prayer. One must keep in mind its obligatory character, though not need explicitly intended as a communal obligation. One may confine oneself to merely intending to pray for Allahu Akbars over the particular deceased person as an obligatory act, without intending its being in fulfillment of a communal obligation. The intention must coincide with one's opening Allahu Akbar. It is valid for someone to perform a funeral prayer for a dead person who is absent, while following an imam who is praying over a dead person who is present.
It's almost confusing, the last part of that. It's valid for someone to pray for a funeral over a prayer for a dead person who isn't there, while following a imam who is praying over a dead person who is present. So you can only pray for someone who isn't there, a dead person who isn't there, when you're in the presence of a dead person. You can't have that done. That's quite an interesting statement. All right, can you read one more, Darcy?
Sure. G4.7. One says Allahu Akbar 4 times in the funeral prayer, raising one's hands to shoulder level at each one, and it is recommended between each one to fold the right hand over the left. The funeral prayer is not invalidated by adding a 5th Allahu Akbar, even intentionally, though if the imam adds one, the follower does not do likewise, but simply waits to finish with them when he just says the salams.
So here we get into more invalidation. They didn't say it, but they hinted at it. Oh, if you copy the imam when he prays an extra, he'll say takbir an extra time. And the interesting thing is in the Arabic here, it says takbir. It does not say Allahu Akbar. And I find that interesting. Every time they've mentioned Allah Akbar in the Arabic, it says takbir, because it's I understand why, because this is an instruction for the imam. The imam is the one saying takbir, and the follow-up is the people will say Allahu Akbar. That's the interesting part of that. All right, let's go on. And let's see. Sharon, can you read 4.8, please?
After the first Allahu Akbar, it is obligatory to recite the Fatiha. It is recommended to say, I take refuge, etc. Before it and Amin after it, though not to recite the opening supplication or a surah therein. It is obligatory that the Fatiha be recited in the funeral prayer and that the other spoken elements be uttered. But as for each occurring after its respective Allahu Akbar, the only one which must obligatorily be in its place is the blessings on the Prophet, which must come after the second Allahu Akbar.
So this one I think I caught. So hold on a second. Let me see if I can pull this up. As I got too many things going. I was doing things at the last minute. Never do things at the last minute. I should know better. But this one, I think I have this one down here. This was just kind of surprising. 84.8, I think it is. Yeah. So I'm going to read what it says in the Arabic. I just didn't post it in. So in the Arabic, it says, he should recite Al-Fatiha, obligatory, after the first one. And it's recommended to seek refuge and safety without. Don't understand the previous purpose in saying that. The opening and the surah. It's obligatory to recite Al-Fatiha and the other verbal pillars of prayer for the dead. So they're using the term pillars, and they're talking about elements here. It's just interesting. And the part that got me, you see where it says the only one which must obligatory be in its place is the blessings on the Prophet. This is what's weird about the Arabic. It says this in the Arabic. This is due to the right to pray for the Prophet. Peace and blessings be upon him. It must be after the second takbir. Now, Muhammad still needs people praying over him. I mean, what does that say? I'm kind of surprised when I hear that. It's
because he hasn't found peace, even though he's in the grave.
Houston, it's takbir, Takber. That's how they're translating it into English. Take a beer? No, not. It's takbir. Okay. And Sharon, can you go on and read 4.9?
Sure. After the second Allahu Akbar and one remains standing throughout the funeral prayer, it is obligatory to say the blessings on the Prophet, after which it is sunnah to supplicate for the believers. It is also sunnah to bless the folk of the Prophet after blessings upon him, and to say Alhamdulillah before it.
And again, here in Arabic, it says before praying upon the Prophet. And I had not connected all these blessings to, in Arabic being translated praying upon. Maybe there's I'm using the Google Translate. I'm not getting the advantage of having an excellent Arabic translator. But this stuff does make you question. What is the real thing here that they're singing about Muhammad? Does Muhammad need that many prayers to get himself out of? If we're still praying for him, is he stuck in a place called Purgatory? Is there an Islamic purgatory? And as we go on, we're going to be talking about that more, because these prayers for the dead, they're asking for you to ask for forgiveness for their sins. And that's just the part that doesn't make sense.
I don't remember reading in the Quran anything about I'm not going to say purgatory, but I just don't remember reading anything about a place between heaven and hell. Or something.
It's like it's not in the Bible, it's not in the Quran. It's there's nothing there, and that's the interesting part. So where would they get these ideas?
It's just drawn out of an 11th century teaching is where purgatory comes from.
Yes,
There's
yes.
some things in the Bible about it, but I don't want to get into that here.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a very, I think it's kind of shocking that I didn't expect this, that we'd be talking about purgatory. We're talking about Islam, but they're the ones who put it into the funeral prayers, and I didn't expect that. All right. Let's see. Who's next up here? Dr. Kufar, would you like to read G 4.10?
G, where am I at? Okay.
Let me make it here for you.
Okay. After the third Allahu Akbar, one supplicates for the deceased. The recommended supplication is, O Allah, this is your slave, the son of your slave. He has left the zephyr of this world and his spaciousness, in which were the things and the people he loved, for the darkness of the grave and that which he will meet. He testified that there is no God but you alone, without a partner, and that Muhammad is your slave and messenger. You know him better than we, O Allah. He has gone to remain with you, and you are the best to remain with. He is now in need of your mercy, and you have no need to torment him. We come to you and desire for you, interceding for him. O Allah, if he did well, treat him the better, and if he did wrong, disregard it. And through your mercy, show him your good pleasure and protect him from the trial and torment of the grave. Make his grave spacious for him and distant the earth from his sides. And through your mercy, protect him from your torment until you raise him and send him safely to your paradise. O most merciful of merciful. This is an optional supplication. The minimum is mentioned below in G413F.
I think this is, again, we're getting on the edge of Islamic purgatory. I had not conceived of this, and I had been told about it, but the only one I've heard actually spend some time on this is actually Lloyd de Jong. He mentions it in a couple of things, but I sit there like, whoa. I mean, I guess the first time I hear some things, sometimes I think sometimes I need to swallow them a bit better. But this is a topic I guess you would expect it if you're talking about the dead. I guess I would want to find it in a doctrinal type position, not necessarily in law. And those type of things we're still getting into doctrinal positions, but it just, I find it surprising. Let's go back here. You alone he testified that there is no God but you alone. He's talking about Allah without a partner. That's because Allah doesn't have a wife, remember, to have sex with. That's what they're saying. So Allah's physical and is you alone with, and that Muhammad is your slave and messenger. Notice it didn't say prophet. You know him better than we. And it says he has gone to remain with you. Again, we're talking about Muhammad still. You are best to remain with. He is now in need of your mercy. So Muhammad needs Allah's mercy now that he's dead, and he's been dead for decades, eons. Now we're into centuries. Millennia. Wait a minute. Why does he still need mercy? Was he that evil? Does he really? I mean, taking him thousands and thousands of years to burn up. I don't know. This is quite a statement. Muhammad was so evil that he needs the mercy of Allah from every Muslim anytime somebody dies. Mercy praying, I should say. It's Allah's mercy they're asking for, but they're asking people to pray for Muhammad. It's quite a statement. I don't know if anybody else sees that, but Any other comments here from anybody? All right. Seems conflicting to have torment in the grave prior to being raised up. I would think purgatory is after being raised up from the grave. Well, they usually say you're in the garden or in the you're either in a garden or you are in hell. And that's the garden is their concept of heaven. They don't necessarily talk about the grave is what we've been seeing here. It's one or the other. Their concept of paradise is a garden. So that's maybe heard a hadith related to torment in the grave caused by I like this one. Heard there's a hadith related to torment in the grave caused by urination issues. Yes. Read that one. It's been a while since I've seen that. So again, the torment. All right, let's keep going. All right. G 4.11, and I think we're up to Eric. Would you please read, Eric?
Yep. It is commendable to say before above, O Allah, forgive those of us who are alive and those who are dead, those present and those absent, those who are young and those who are old, those who are male and those who are female. O Allah, let those of us you give life by Islam, and let those of us you take back die in a state of faith. If it is the funeral of a child, one may add to this, O Allah, send him ahead to smooth the way for his parents and make him a reason for reward, a treasure, admonition, reflection, and intercessor. Make the scales of their good deeds heavy through him and fill their hearts with their patience.
This is kind of, again, we have a child doing intercession for a parent. So there's more intercessors. So don't they have a doctrine that says no one can take upon himself the sins of another? Yet we have an intercessor. So stuff to think about.
Isn't there some type of doctrine where the martyr is able to, if you are a martyr, a shaheed, you are able to, not only are you immediately entering into paradise with your harem there.
Yes.
Aren't there a set of number of people that they're able to admit also?
They can admit 70.
They
can admit 70. They get to keep 2 of their hories.
70,
and they have to get 70 away.
People?
Hories. I didn't say they were people. They're hories.
No, I mean 70 people. I mean, are there a number of people that they are allowed to admit? For example,
70. Yes.
You see the parents go, "Oh, I'm so thankful that so and so blew himself to pieces." And now, when that person goes to heaven, I mean, this is a bunch of bunk. But I mean, let's just the doctrine itself, though. Does it say that they get to name certain people that get to come in?
It tells them they have to give away 70 of their hories. There's a hadith on this.
They have to trade.
So this is why when somebody is going to commit an act of martyrdom, people will come to them bringing candy and sweets and things, not celebrating their coming death, but to get them to remember them after they die, and they're handing out the hories. So that's the purpose behind it.
I'm confused. So instead of getting the 72 hories, if they wanted like their mom, their dad, their sister, their brother, that would put them down to 68. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So they hand out one apiece. Yeah.
Interesting. So how would
the mom and
dad know? How would the mom and dad know if they just dissed them? Like, hey, I ain't getting let there. That woman used to beat me all the time. I'm not letting her in. How would they know? And what if they were greedy and they wanted to keep all 72?
Well, and that's it's one of the reasons why the women in places like Gaza are okay with birthing kids that kill themselves for the purpose of their own getting to heaven. It's kind of a shocker in the long run. I
It's
did
a
a
death call. I mean, it really,
yes.
truly is.
That's
it's just so sad.
I mean, to make a child. I mean, this still gets me. A treasure admonition. I mean, I get this. The child is a treasure. He's an admonition. He's a reflection. I have an aunt, cousins, I should say. They lost their child very, very, very young, and the mother was never. My aunt was. I call her my aunt's cousin, and never the same. I get that too, but to call the child your intercessor, you're now making the child more of an. That just doesn't line up to my understanding of who God is.
A tool. Your child is nothing but a tool for your salvation.
Yes, that's what they're looking at.
A human being that you were supposed to be intimate with, a human being that you were supposed to love unconditionally, is nothing more than a tool for your salvation.
Yes,
that's sad.
And it's sad, and it's kind of sick as well. Red, are you with us tonight, or are you driving?
I'm back.
All right.
I wouldn't say I'm never with anybody. So, but
right.
Well, go back to that. I just want to comment on that.
Okay.
This actually explains a lot. I mean, look at what's going on. With the Palestinians, quote unquote, out there in Gaza land and the West Bank or whatever. They literally sacrificed their children for this reason.
Yes.
This is no. They honestly. I mean, you can watch the interviews with the el Shadids, the mothers of the Shadids. You see their interviews. And they all brag about how the whole neighborhood loves them. They walk into the laundromat and they're like, "Oh, that's the mother of a Shahid." Oh, and dignity. I get so much dignity and respect when I just walk into the laundromat. All the women know who I am, and I will sacrifice all my children. I will have more children to sacrifice. I mean, this is how sick these people are, and this is where they're getting it from.
I saw a video with a father and a mother with, these are different children, and a Jewish man is asking that, I don't think they know it's Jewish, but what if your daughter wants to die and become a shaheed? And they said they would be happy for her and support her. And this is do separate cases. They're saying all these wonderful things about a child who would die as a martyr for him, working for Hamas. And the child, here's the catch: a female is not promised 72 virgins. They don't get that. They have never been told that. They're just told a shaheed gets that. But if it's a female, she's not promised anything. The guy is promised it. So, yeah. And, this is where I think Kusama's right. We have to get Muslims to read. Like, we're going through this really slowly. And what Kufar and I went through, dissecting the Quran, we kind of raced through it. But at the same time, the fact that we did it, I'll be honest, I considered reading the Quran penance type work, and I'm not into that. It was hard. It kind of felt like do you feel like we lost brain cells doing that? Because I'll be honest, there's times like, did we get anything about did we learn anything from what we just read? And it's hard. I look at this like, whoa, what's going on? But yeah. It just makes you think. Now, let me get into this next piece here. This next one here is G4.12. Red, if you could read that for us.
Sure. After the fourth, Allah Akbar. So they they're reciting Allah Akbar at a funeral, I take it.
Well, they're saying the Imam is saying Takbir. That's usually what it says in Arabic. Okay. And I don't know why they're saying it. They're putting the Allahu Akbar there instead of Takbir. I think the purpose is that they think the English speakers know more what Allahu Akbar means more than Takbir.
Okay, all right. So basically after the response to the Takbir. Okay.
Yes.
So after the fourth Allahu Akbar, it's a sunnah to say, O Allah, do not withhold from us his recompense, nor try us after him, but forgive us and him. Then one says, Al-Salamu Alaikum, twice. The first one being obligatory, and the second sunnah. The integrals, you want me to keep going?
Yes.
The integrals of the funeral prayer are 7. The intention, standing, saying Allahu Akbar 4 times, very important. And the Fatiha, the blessings of the Prophet, Allah bless him and give him peace. The supplications for the deceased, the minimum being, oh Allah, forgive this deceased. And the
Here we
first,
go, purgatory again.
and the first of the 2 times, one says Assalamu alaikum to finish the prayer. We'll get into this after. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
In the Arabic, again, where it says the blessings on the Prophet, the translation is praying for the Prophet. I'm still trying to wrap myself around that. So we're praying for. I did not expect to find Muslims praying for the dead. Yes, it's a death cult, but you're asking for forgiveness for the dead. How long does this cycle go on? I know in certain groups they get paid to do that, and I haven't seen any mention of that, but it does make you wonder what's going on here, because they don't mention praying for the dead in the Quran.
Have you ever seen the video? It's an old one. I'm trying to look for it, and I know I'm not going to be able to find it because it's that old. The dude talking about the torment of the grave, the Muslim, and the snakes in the grave, and he's all serious about how the angels will come and hit you with a hammer of steel, and then they will unleash the snakes, and these are not good snakes. These are bad snakes. They're just the one drop of their poison will melt your flesh off. And he gets really into it. But yeah, I'll have to find it. It's a really good video. Christian Prince actually played some of it, but yeah, it's an old one. Nobody saved it. But anyway, that's the torment of the grave.
So this is the interesting thing here, though. You notice they have 7 parts or 7 pillars. It could be said that way, to this prayer. Notice what's not here. There's no citation of any hadith, no citation of any Quranic scripture, nothing. So this is made up, regulated, and you have to sit here and go, where did they get this stuff from? Who made this up? It makes you, and if you notice this small portion over here of Arabic, all right, again, it's very, very small. Intention, standing, saying takbir 4 times, the Fatiha, the prayer on the Prophet, and it's very much just so in this one, but it just makes you wonder. All right, we're gonna go on, and we're back to Darcy. Darcy, can you read G14, please?
Okay. The conditions of the funeral prayer are the same as other prayers, but in addition require A, that the deceased body has been washed before the prayer, B, and that the imam and those praying do not stand ahead of the body during the prayer, i.e., closer to the direction of prayer, Qibla. It is offensive to perform the funeral prayer over a body before it has been shrouded. If someone dies under a pile of rubble and it is impossible to take the body out and wash it, then he is not prayed over.
And take a look at this. So right here, so you have the dead person, their head has to be at the in a mosque, the dead person's there, or wherever they're going to do this prayer, facing the Qibla, and the dead person has to have their head pointed towards the Qibla. And you start thinking about this. We've talked about how the feet had to be pointed towards it. it's almost like you have to turn the person sideways so their face can face. It's a little confusing. Is your head facing it? Is your face or your head? I mean, you have to sit there and try and figure out what exactly is meant here. Direction of prayer. The way I'm reading this is the head has to be directional that way. It's kind of different when you read this. Could anybody else have a comment? All right. Can you start 4:15, please? Darcy?
Yeah. A latecomer to the funeral prayer, whom the Imam has preceded by having already said,
Oh, keep going. I didn't realize
Allahu Akbar, a number of times recites the Fatiha after his own opening Allahu Akbar, and then says Allahu Akbar each time the Imam does, though he performs the integrals in order from the point at which he began, reciting the Fatiha after his first Allahu Akbar, the blessings.
Again, they would call it the prayer in Arabic, which is, again, I didn't expect that. It's so repetitious. And exactly so. When I got down to the part where it says, if the latecomer, can you start from there?
Yeah, if the latecomer joins that one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. If the latecomer joins the group with his opening Allahu Akbar, and the Imam immediately says the second Allahu Akbar before the latecomer has had a chance to recite the Fatiha, then the latecomer omits the Fatiha and says Allahu Akbar with the Imam. Here, the latecomer has performed the first two Allahu Akbars, both the second one, which he performed with them, and the first one, which lacked the Fatiha, and he is no longer obliged to recite the Fatiha. If the Imam's Allahu Akbar occurs while such latecomer is reciting the Fatiha, he discontinues it and says Allahu Akbar with the Imam. If the Imam says Allahu Akbar and the follower does not say it until the Imam has said it a second time, it invalidates the follower's prayer.
So does this sound too wordy to actually understand what to do when you go to pray for, you go to a memorial type service for a dead Muslim person? Would you be concerned if you were a Muslim that you don't know what to do, and should you show up late because you might have your prayer invalidated?
I would think that you'd have to develop some type of flow chart here. You ever see those flow charts?
Yes.
If yes, here. If no, there. If no, okay. If yes, there. No, there. And that to me, that's exactly what you would have to do with this. I mean, it's just so absurd to word things.
If you fart, leave. I mean, if you do this, leave. If your prayers are no good here. Yeah. And God help you if you fart at a funeral. Now, that would probably be grounds for that lynching that we heard about.
Well, how would you like to be that guy that's late and you're the Imam? Hold on. Abdullah back there, he just walked in. We got to wait for him to catch up to everybody. How would you like to be that guy? I would just stay outside and say, look, I'll just wait till the guy comes out.
I think that's the point here, is that they're telling people not to come late, and they're trying to, I think that is very much the point. Don't come late. If you're going to be late, don't bother, because we're going to invalidate your prayer if you make a mistake. I mean, this is that Gnostic thing. If you have that special knowledge, okay, you're fine. If you don't have that special knowledge, too bad for you. We're not going to listen to you. This is Allah's way of dealing with reality. Most people won't be able to follow even this flow. If you turn this into a flow chart, you actually have people should have to be taught how to read a flow chart correctly the first time. And if you haven't taught them, they won't get it. And simple things for children. This would be a child couldn't come to a funeral in this respect because they wouldn't know what to do, and they could be most sincere, but to actually have your child's prayers invalidated, I would probably not bring a child if this was the case. But they glorify death, so again, that's kind of sad. All right, and we're back to Sharon. If you could read these two.
When one has performed a funeral prayer over someone, it is recommended that one not repeat it. How about not repeating the instructions? Okay.
I'm into that one.
Okay. The next one, 4:17. Someone who has missed praying a funeral prayer until after the deceased has been buried may pray it at the grave, and such a prayer is legally valid whether the deceased was buried before the funeral prayer had been performed over him or whether after, though it is unlawful to bury a Muslim before his funeral prayer, and anyone who knows of it is guilty of there's so many.
Guilty of a sin.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah. And to bury a Muslim before his funeral prayer, and anyone who knows of it is guilty of sin, but only on condition that the person praying at the grave had reached puberty and was sane on the day the deceased died, as he was thus one of those responsible for the communal obligation of praying over the deceased. Otherwise, he may not pray there.
So let's say your name is Joe Biden and you die and you're in a state of dementia. And let's say you're a Muslim. So how are these rules different? We don't care if we bury you first. We'll pray over you after you're in the ground. I mean,
I might have an Irish funeral and have a beer or two.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
Well, no, yeah, the Muslims are not supposed to have alcohol on this earth, but they have tons of it in the afterlife if you make it to heaven. You have a whole river of alcohol flowing down the road, down the river. Like, oh, that's one of the things I will never grasp, how it's okay for the afterlife, but not okay here. I would think that would not be kosher type thing. But it would not be halal is what I should say. All right, we're rushing down. Eric, you're next. 4.8, please. 1.8.
Praying over the dead who are not present. It is permissible to perform the funeral prayer for an absent person whose body is out of town, even if not far, even if the body is not in the direction of prayer, which the person praying faces. But such a prayer does not lift the communal obligation from the people of the town where the deceased dies. It is not permissible to perform the funeral prayer over someone who is absent from the place of prayer when the body is in the same town, though this is permissible if it is at the edge of a large city and and it is a problem to reach.
So hold on a second. We can't pray for this guy if he's in the same town or city. We have to go to the other place he's at. But if we live in a larger place, we can pray over the dead person. Isn't that what that's saying?
But it doesn't provide, like everything else, it leaves much of the details out for qualifying what is the city, what is the distance, what all that is,
We're probably back to, what did we say? It was like 48 miles, or if you travel about 50 miles a day, it's probably about that. Well, wait, they're saying city, so it's not 50 miles. Yeah, you're right. They haven't defined it at all. Travel.
And so that would be up to some self-appointed imam who's going to interpret the law according to the way they feel about it. And then you're going to have some other imam say, no, that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's the way I'm interpreting it. And then you're going to have a church split. And the next thing you know, you're going to have a bunch of fatwas issued against each other, and they're all going to be dead because nobody knows what the definition of a city is. That sounds about right.
All right, Eric, can you do 4.19 as well?
Yes. If a part of a body of a person whose death has been verified is found, then it is obligatory. This is got to... Okay, let me start over. If a part of the body of a person whose death has been verified is found, then it is obligatory to wash, shroud, and pray over it, even if the part is a fingernail. Or, I'm sorry, or hair.
Every little part has to be prayed over.
This
So
is really
these are the
problematic.
guys that
with
blow
these suicide
themselves
bombers.
up.
I mean,
So
my
how
goodness.
many prayers do we have going on for the dead person who blows themselves up?
Let me get this eyelash off the third floor balcony here and pray over it. As there's no difference between a little and a lot, provided that the part was separated from him after death. And provided, oh, okay. Well, there you go. There's the qualifier right there. Separated for him or her after death. Provided the rest of him has not been prayed over, or it has, then it is not obligatory to pray over the part. Okay, so if it's during death, you don't have to recover all the parts and pray over all the parts. And if you find a piece of him over here, like a thumb, we found a thumb one morning, then you don't have to pray over it, but you have to turn it over to the.
Yeah, and don't forget to shroud it.
Well, I don't know what they did with it, but
yeah.
Yeah.
This stuff just, I don't know. I just, it's the details they put in here and in some of the nonsensical stuff that goes with it. You pray for, I mean, this is like the God of exception. We keep calling Allah the God of exceptions. Do this, but if he's got to have these exceptions all the time. Pray for every part, but if it was separated after his death, so somebody chopped him up after he was dead. Wait a minute. If he blew up, that caused his death. I'm kind of confused in that one.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, especially in the day of suicide bombers.
Yes.
What do you do with? Of course, they're going to be blown every which way. Or let's take. What's his face? Suleiman, the Iraqi general guy that they blew up.
Yes, the Iranian general. Yeah,
Iranian. There you go. I'm sorry, the Iranian guy. Part of his body was laying out on the flipping tarmac of the airport. They hit him, 100 yards downrange. What do you do with that? Are you going to pray over that and have a whole separate funeral if you find it later, or what do you do with that?
And this is written, people think about this. This is written long before DNA. They probably didn't think we could find little body parts that would say, hey, that's part of him. Oh, I guess they prayed over him already, so we don't have to do another prayer. This just kind of makes you think. All right, we're going to move on. And Red, would you like to, this is Red. You got the interesting one, 4.20. Are you with us, Red? Oh, I guess he's dropped off.
I'll read it for him. Let's see, G4020, right? G420. Okay, it's unlawful to wash the body of a martyr, even if in a state of major ritual impurity, or the like, or perform the funeral prayer over him. A martyr must mean someone who died in battle with non-Muslims from fighting them, as opposed to someone who died otherwise, such as a person killed out of oppression when not in battle, or who died from fighting non-polytheists, such as Muslim transgressors. It is recommended that war gear be removed from the body, such as a breastplate and the like, and it is best to bury the martyr in the rest of his blood-stained clothes, since it is the effect of worship, though the responsible family member may nevertheless remove the garments and shroud the body before burial. Yeehaw.
So let's get this straight. The guy who is going to earn 70 people their pass into heaven, their concept of heaven, he's going to give 70 houris away. His body is not treated with as much respect as the person who's going to get a free pass.
Well, I'm
Is
thinking
that what
that
I'm getting here?
the blood, I think the blood is supposed to be some type of cred to get yourself into heaven.
Yes.
Show up into heaven and say, hey, look at all the blood I shed for this, this death cult we're in. Look at me. Let me in. I get my 72 right now. The rest of you all, they had to wash you and, you just died of old age or whatever. But
it almost is the humor here is that it's almost saying, well, if you had to wash, you're not good enough. That's that Gnosticism again. Oh, special knowledge. I'm a martyr. I get special privileges. You're not a martyr. You don't get special privileges. And how do we tell? One of us is washed. One of us isn't.
Right.
Wow. Can you imagine? I mean, this kind of threw me when I first read it. Like, wait a minute. And Dr. Lloyd DeJong had this highlighted, and I just sat there like, whoa, okay. I would not have expected that. Less care for a martyr after death than the regular person. That says something. All right. Dr. Kufar. Oh, bummer. I thought he was going to be with us. All right. I'm hoping he comes back. Okay. Bummer. He had to go. All right. This is one of the reasons I was hoping he would be with us. This piece here. Darcy, can you read 4.21 all the way down?
Okay. A premature baby, meaning one born before 6 full months, that dies, is treated as an adult if it gave a cry, sneezed or coughed when it left the mother, or showed movement. Treated as an adult, meaning it is obligatory to wash, shroud, pray over, and bury the baby, since its life and death have been verified. If it did not, then 1. If it had reached 4 months in the womb, which is the time at which the spirit is breathed into it, then it is washed before burial, but not prayed over. 2. But if it had not, it is only obligatory to bury it.
So what's wrong with 4.21? That's the first red underlined section. What's wrong? What does it tell us that Islam doesn't know?
9 months is a full term. I'm not sure what is considered premature.
8 months. I believe it's 8 months.
8 months
before you. It depends on the maturity. I mean, so you'll meet women who give birth before the 9 months is up, and it depends on the size of the baby you got. My friend's one of their little ones was born, and the baby fit in the palm of my hand. It was probably one of the most shocking things that they let me. I was too scared to hold it, but they wanted to let me hold the baby, and I'm just like, I'm too scared to hold a little one that would fit in the palm of my hand. I was scared. I was 24, 25, and just thinking that's awful small. I'd be scared to be responsible for anything. But that baby was about 7 months, I think. Yeah. Very, very small.
Did it live?
Yeah. Yep. She's married, has kids of her own.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, but anyway, the problem here in this number 1, the time at which the spirit is breathed into it. So
It's
it was
120
not
days.
human before that.
Yes. So they do not consider, so you can have abortion up to 120 days. And that's what it's saying. You're right. They're saying there's no humanity in the person. There's no life in the baby. They don't believe that life begins at conception. They believe life begins when you reach 120 days. That's why they can have you come from a blood clot as part of their embryology. Because embryology is a dead blood cell. I'm sorry, a blood clot is a dead blood cell. So it's one of the things that's always baffled me. I thought Dr. Kufar would be here to have some fun, but this is the part that gets me. How can you, so easily, and even in death, they diss the babies. I get number 2 where they say if you should still bury the child. Yes. But this is an allowance for abortion before even abortion is mentioned of. That's the thing. And 120 days. You think about how developed a child is at 120 days. We're talking what? 90 days, that's 3 months. 120 days, that's 4 months. All right. And at 121 days, now 121 days, it's okay. The child's okay. 120, maybe not. Maybe. Which day does Allah decide to breathe into the mother's? Yeah.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are they even having abortions? Because I thought their goal was to outbirth us and push us to have abortions. When I say us,
It's a good
non-Muslims.
Yeah, you're right. It allows for it. So, like, if, let's say, a certain care imam got caught, like as he did this a couple years ago, enjoying muta with a contract with basically a prostitute, another Muslim female, that he paid her for his time and enjoyment of her services for a limited time. Because he paid her for that limited time, this is just where it gets nutty. I don't know have another way to put it. It's just, what does that say? They can have these abortions. The muta can be, okay, you're not at 120 days. You can get that abortion if you want. So my wife won't know. Yeah. And they're under no obligation to tell their wives. It's problematic. It's kind of a double-edged sword the way I look at it. It's an allowance for something they say they don't believe in. Yes, it does allow for it. Is it happening? I think it's happening on a scale we're not familiar with or know of. We don't define those statistics, which would be interesting if we actually did collect statistics on this concept. All right. And let's see. You just read, right, Sharon? So who just read?
I think it was
Darcy did.
Yeah.
So
Darcy.
Sharon, can you read 422 and 423?
Yeah. 422. The burial should take place immediately after the funeral prayer and not be delayed to wait for anyone besides the responsible family member, provided he is reasonably nearby. If not, it is not to be feared that the condition of the body will change. Though if this is feared, then the family member is not awaited. Should I just go on?
Keep going. Yeah, just keep going.
423. It is best that the bier
Right, the buyer
be carried by its poles, sometimes by 4 men one pole on the shoulder of each, the poles being parallel with the bier and supporting it, 2 ends forward and 2 ends aft, and sometimes by 5, the 5th man between the 2 forward poles. It is recommended that the bearers walk faster than usual, though they should not trot.
So you're carrying a dead body, only it's not in a coffin. They don't bury dead people in coffins. They've just put a shroud on them. That's it. So this is why you have poles and a cloth that gets wrapped around the poles, which is the bier. It's kind of, I find the term bearers interesting. I think it's stolen from us, from Christians and Jews, how we would treat this. I think that's a terminology stolen. But that part makes sense. The part above here, F4.22, if you notice, it says if this is feared, talking about the body condition changing. So if the body's going to rot, again, they're not putting it in a coffin. So they're worried about the stench. That's what they're talking about.
I thought
The
they
body
buried
changing.
within one day.
No.
Huh?
Yeah, that's the point. That's where I was pointing out earlier, is that they don't have to. I think it's a misconception that we get told this, but it's not necessarily true. I'm curious, Eric. Have you heard that they have to be buried by a certain point since you were overseas?
My understanding is that they have to be buried within a day of their death. That's my understanding. I don't know where I've read or heard this before, but my understanding
Same here.
This is exactly why when Muslims start saying that they're all these prophets, all these past prophets of Judaism and Christianity or whatever are buried in Mecca, we know it's not true, because there's no way that people that are residing and acting out through their entire ministries up in Israel, up in Jerusalem or in Judea or that region of the world would ever die there and then be transported to Mecca for burial. It's a bunch of baloney. But my understanding is they have to be buried with one day. Let me find it.
They don't allow us to do any excavation, so they're just spewing bull.
And this is where I would have thought before we got to this point, and I'll tell you, there is nothing. I went through this whole book, and I haven't found anything about the immediacy. That's why I went back and I looked for the immediacy of burial. There was nothing there. Remember, they said they could let them sit for up to 3 days to find out if they're dead. So in fact, they did say about the mentioned stench. So you can wait till the smell of human rot is on a person to determine if they're dead. That would mean that some people don't know how to check a person's pulse or see if they're breathing. I have to wonder about that one. Can you tell me that a warrior, I'm picking on men who go to battle, wouldn't be able to tell if someone's dead? Your medical professional, I don't know how far back, wouldn't be able to tell if someone's dead? Does this say something about the education level of the people writing this? I don't know.
It's the same argument to say that as far as when the argument is made that Jesus swooned on the cross, he wasn't really dead. Therefore, the Roman soldiers would not have known that Jesus was secretly hanging on the cross with one eye. Like, are they watching? He was actually trying to stay alive. But that hanging part there, that would not have suffered or suffocated Jesus Christ. No. He had him fooled. Again, it's just another one of those Islamicisms that we're just supposed to accept.
So this is the interesting, again, I looked up a couple of sites that I usually use for this type of thing, for immediacy of death, immediacy of burial, and I'm not finding it. I have to say I was surprised, and I didn't expect, this is one of those things I didn't expect when we covered this section. So it still has me kind of surprised. I didn't expect that. All right, we're going to go on.
Okay, hold
I'll read.
on. Paul, I found the source for that. It's a hadith. Abu Huraira has narrated that the Prophet said, this is from Bukhari 315 and Muslim 944.
Can you share it?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You would ask me to do something like that. No, that's not it. Present. Share screen. There we go, right there. Can you see this?
Yeah, it's just kind of. Let's see if I can.
All right.
raise
Well,
this.
let's enlarge.
You need to grow a little bit larger.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Reject all. Okay. Right here. Make haste. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Make haste in burying the deceased, because if it is the janazah of a pious servant, then enjoin this goodness with its station quickly. And if it is the janazah of an evil person, then quickly dispose of such a load from your shoulders. And you got Sahih Bukhari and Muslim.
So yeah, so inform me when he is dead and make haste. So I only found one, and this is from Sunnah.com. So let me pull that one up. And that's interesting. I went to Sunnah.com, and I did not expect to only find one.
Yeah, I just have one question on that. How do they know which person is good and which is evil when they're dead?
Oh, all right. So let me read this one. Okay. The prophet came to visit him and said, "Verily, I think that Tala is about to die. So inform me when he is dead and make haste in burying him. Indeed, it is improper for the corpse of a Muslim to be kept lying unburied among his family members." Oh, so that's a condition. So he's hanging out with his dead. So they didn't bury him in a timely manner. He's been dead, and now we're at that 2 or 3 days part where he stinks. So
isn't there a Bible verse? Isn't there a Bible verse? But Lord, he stinketh.
Yes.
About Lazarus. Move the stone.
Yes.
But Lord, he stinketh. Can't do that.
So I think this is telling people to keep, not to keep dead bodies amongst them. But I don't think there's a rush. And I'm at Sunnah.com. I put make haste in burying. All right. That's what yours said, right? I'm get rid of in. Let's see what happens. Make haste burying. It's still the only one that's coming up. Rush burying. Let's try that. I mean, this is shrouding him, burying him. I was kind of surprised because this is the one place I thought I might find yet.
Well, type in Bukhari. Here, I'll put both of these in the.
Okay, what's the number?
I'll put them in chat, private chat. There, I put them in private chat.
1315. Let's see. So we'll find out. 1315. And this is the insanity because we get lied to too many times. There we go. Hurry up with a dead body, for if it was righteous, you are forwarding it to welfare, and if it was otherwise, then you're putting off an evil thing down your necks. It doesn't tell us what that means. If it was righteous, what was righteous?
Gardensofpeace.org. And it says religious importance of burying dead. And it's got this, I'm assuming this is an Arabic site or a Muslim site, but that might be assuming too much. Hold on. because let me see here. This is Muslim cemeteries. Okay, so this is a Muslim cemetery site, and it was citing that hadith, those two hadiths. What was the other one? The other one was Sahih Muslim 944. I'll go to.
Okay, here we go. Muslim 944. Make haste at a funeral. If the dead person was good, it is a good state to which you are sending him on. But if he was otherwise, it is an evil of which you are ridding yourselves. Make haste at a funeral. So you're at the funeral, you're making haste. Haste. It's not saying what you're making haste about. Maybe putting the guy in the ground. Okay, let's get this done with. It doesn't say that there's a need to get somebody in the ground quickly. 943. One day in the course of a sermon, Allah's messenger made mention of a person among his companions who had died and been wrapped in a shroud not long enough to cover his whole body and was buried during the night. The Apostle of Allah reprimanded the audience that a person was buried during the night in a state the funeral prayer could not be offered. When it became a dire necessity for a man. Apostle of Allah also said, when any of you shrouds your brother, he should shroud him well. Again, so this statement that they have to be buried quickly doesn't follow Sharia, which is a total mind number. I mean, that's kind of, again, doing this research, I think this is one of the things that's actually important. So if you are a mortician and you're being hurried, oh, we got to rush and get this body in the ground, ask them for their scriptures to say they got to do that, because even their Sharia has no push on this, which is honestly, I was surprised. I didn't expect that. I don't think any of us did. And you know, the sad, sorry truth is I've read this I don't know how many times and I never really caught it. All right. G424, it's recommended for men to follow the bier to the place of burial close enough behind it to be considered part of the funeral procession. Okay, so you have to be part of hang out and be part of the procession. It's offensive to follow it with fire or incense burners, which are likewise offensive. At the burial, let's see, it's dark. You want to be able to see where you're going. Don't put a light on. Oh, wait a minute. It doesn't say light. You can't turn the light on. It says you can't have a fire or incense. Do they bury people at night? Probably not after what we just read. Okay, we're back to Darcy. Can you read G5.1, please?
Sure. Burial. Then the deceased is buried obligatorily. It is best to bury him in the cemetery. It is unlawful to bury someone where another person has been buried unless the previous body is completely disintegrated, such that nothing of it remains, neither flesh nor bone. It is unlawful to bury two people in the same grave unless absolutely necessary, as when there has been much killing or death, in which case a wall of earth is made between the two bodies as a barrier.
So, question here. I want to ask everybody a question. If someone has disintegrated so there's no flesh nor bone, how do you know that they were buried in the same place? Anybody got an answer to that?
Not me.
Tells me it doesn't exist.
Maybe the marker's in the wrong spot. I didn't expect that one. All right. Well, I mean, how do you know? I mean, maybe. So this is going to get humorous somewhat in a minute. You notice how they're talking about on top of each other, not putting two bodies together. Oh, Eric. Okay, here we go. All the cemeteries are full of Palestinians buried in a mass grave in Gaza. And
I don't see any
I
barrier
It's Reuters.
barrier between the two there,
Hmm.
other than a tarp.
And they're in shrouds. Okay. Notice they're not putting coffins
And
in.
it's only about 4 feet deep. If that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, because they're all head and shoulders above. So that doesn't follow the rule either about. So maybe there's a good chance that these are not humans. This is a good scene, possibly.
I had a thought.
Maybe these people are going to get up and walk away. I don't know.
I have a
Hollywood
thought.
scene.
Maybe because there were so many, maybe some imam made a fatwa that was okay.
that might be it. That very well may be it.
It could be.
But they have all kinds of pictures here from Gaza where they're burying people in these mass graves. And I remember specifically. Here it is. Is this it? I think this might be it. Let me present this one here, where they. Okay, let me go back here. This is where they put these barriers in between the graves. Maybe I need to make that bigger. Let me make that.
I can see the barriers. That's.
Can you see that?
But those are huge barriers. I mean, that's.
Yeah, well, they're cinder blocks.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're too wide. Well, they're too wide on
This
this
isn't going to
side.
work for a mass. This isn't going to work for a mass grave in that respect. That's
I
not
bet
necessarily mass.
I bet they used it for people who were important, and then the rest of them were just put in, in the other grave that had all.
It
the
does
blue.
leave a lot of questions. I'm just, I keep looking at the stuff we're doing. This. Let me just show you this next piece. This is just kind of, all right. And did I push the wrong button?
I like your little piggies.
Oh, yeah, here we go. I like them. All right, so I'm going to grow this box up. All right. If someone dies on a ship and it's impossible to bury him on land, the body is placed between two planks. Notice this, to obviate bloating. Really, you want to keep that. So they're going to. So they keep the pressure so you don't have that stench. Okay, so that it reaches shore. So they're going to bury him at sea, and they're hoping he doesn't reach shore, even if the inhabitants are non-Muslim, since a Muslim might find the body and bury it facing the direction of prayer. Oh my gosh, that would be a horrible thing. Digging the grave. The obligatory minimum for a grave is that it conceal the odor. Eric, were they deep enough in those last two pictures we saw?
No.
So they violated Shariah.
Okay, especially the dirt. That it's sand. They're burying them in sand. And folks, if you know anything about sand, it's very porous, and water can seep through it, odor can seep through it. That's not deep enough. I mean, I'm sorry, unless you're going to put some type of, I don't know, some type of powder
Barrier?
on. What was the type of powder?
Tarp?
No, you put the powder down there, something like lye or something on there to keep it from an odor from rising.
Wow. It's recommended to dig the grave wider than the obligatory minimum. That is depth equal the height of an average man. I don't think that's working either. With his arm fully extended upward. Now we're talking maybe 6 feet, maybe higher. Neither one of them has followed this. So the Palestinians are either doing Pollywood because they think we're too stupid and not catching them. This could be interesting to have a discussion on these graves. Oh, you insist on Shariah, but it's not convenient to you follow it even in depth of those. I mean, yeah.
You know, I did notice in that one that I was reading at the bottom, and there's something about two genders that cannot be buried close to each other. I didn't read it all.
Is this on the
Only
bottom
the
one?
last sentence
Okay.
in the previous page.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me go back. Back previous. Okay. It's also unlawful to bury two people in the same grave unless absolutely necessary, as when there has been much killing or death, in which case a wall of earth made between the two bodies as a barrier. If the bodies differ in gender, this is even more imperative, especially when two people of the same gender are not related. So they're worried about their death, well, one dead person touching another dead person, and their different sexes. Wow. Again, you have sin continuing after death. So you can commit sinful acts when you're dead by touching hands with the dead person next to you. It just sounds worse than it is.
Oh my God. I'm going to have to go shove my head in the snowbank after this.
All right, so this is their idea of a grave. So even the stuff that Eric showed us, it's interesting. I put this in. I'm going to skip the reading for this section, but again, this comes from Reliance of the Traveler. They're defining this as how burial should be done. And again, you're not burying people. I think if you use this method, you could probably dig one trench in several different shelves. And as you fill the shelf, fill the area up, then you would probably get away with digging one hole and having people buried on different levels, following all the directions. So it just makes you wonder. I mean, those shallow graves, it doesn't seem to make any sense. And if you look at the length of this person here, he's definitely, or she is definitely buried more than their height. And it just kind of makes you think. All right, we're going to skip on. Let's see. Eric, can you read 5.3, please?
5.3. It says men should bury the dead even if the deceased is female, in which case the best suited is the husband, if able, and then for either sex, those listed in the funeral prayer preference order of G4.3, except that when the two are on the same level, such as two sons or brothers, the most learned in sacred law is preferred to the oldest, unlike the order for prayer. The purpose, therefore, being knowledge of the rules of burial, which a learned person is likely to know better than others. It is recommended that the number of men burying the deceased be an odd number.
I don't know what their infatuation is with odd numbers, because you keep hearing this odd number thing, and you hear it. We heard it in prayers. We heard it in now the amount of people that are involved in the burying process. It's just, what is causing this odd number fascination? I think Muhammad didn't like even numbers. All right, we're back to Darcy. Can you read 5.4, please?
Sure.
Let me change that so you can see it better. Okay.
It is. I can't read the first.
It is preferable to conceal the grave.
All I can see is placing the body in it. A blanket is stretched over the grave about half a meter above the level of the ground. Helpers holding each corner, while another person stands down on the grave at the foot end, ready to take the body from the bier or bier. This is especially necessary when burying a female, and is done because something might be disclosed of the deceased that is desirable to conceal. The head of the deceased is placed near the foot of the grave, foot meaning the end, which will accommodate the feet when the body is in place, and the body is slid from the bier head first. It is recommended for the person burying the deceased who is standing in the grave taking the body, and there may be more than one, to say to the deceased, in the name of Allah and according to the religion of the Messenger of Allah.
We're going to go on. All right. We don't have to. All right. If you could continue all the way down to the end of that section. All right. So the first, number 2 says to supplicate Allah the forgiveness of the deceased. We
Okay,
have
I'm
prayers
thinking.
for the dead again. Got to get them out of their sin.
Yeah, to place a block as a pillow for him, and to pull back the shroud enough to lay his cheek directly on the surface of the block, as it is more repressive of loneliness, and to place the deceased upon his right side. It is obligatory that the body be placed facing the direction of prayer, the Qibla, and this is absolutely necessary. If buried facing the other way or lying on his back, he is disinterred and reburied facing the direction of prayer. The lateral hollow dug into the side of the grave where the body is walled up with blocks after the body has been placed in it before filling in the grave. It is sunnah to use 9 blocks.
And this is just, they use rocks for pillows. They consider using a pillow a waste of money. I mean, that just kind of surprised me. I mean, a lot of care for the dead, but yeah. Let's see. Sharon, can you read 5.6, please?
Yeah. The person at the graveside sprinkles 3 scoops of earth using 2 hands into the grave. It is sooner to say with the first, of it we create you all, with the second, to it we shall make you all return, and with the third, and from it we shall bring you forth again. Quran 20:55. Then the grave is filled in using shovels, after which one stays for a moment. 1, to instruct the deceased the answers he will need to know when the Munkar and Nakir question him in the grave as to his Lord, religion, and prophet. 2, to supplicate for him, such as to say, O Allah, make him steadfast. O Allah, teach him his plea. 3, and to ask forgiveness for him.
So what did it say for Quran 20, verse 55? What were the words? It's and.
You're talking about that first section?
Yeah, where it says and from it. Can you read that?
Using the 2 hands into the grave?
And from it we shall bring.
And from it we shall bring.
It's 1, 2 under 5.6. It's 5.6, and you read. It's
okay. Let me just start from the beginning. The person at the graveside sprinkles 3 scoops of earth using 2 hands into the grave. It is sooner to say the first, of it we created you all. With the second, to it we shall make you all return. And with the third, and from it we shall bring you forth again. Is that what you wanted?
Let me, yeah. So what it actually, in Usama's translation, it says, from it we created you, and in it we will return you, and from it we will bring you forth another time. I'm just kind of, it's very rare I find citations in this that are close to accurate, which is,
yeah, it's kind
I
of
just had to look at that. It's kind of close. Sometimes I wonder, I mean, yeah. And they don't seem to understand the concept of supplication very well, as we've seen. So it just makes you wonder what's going on. All right. Eric, I know this is this too small?
What?
Is this too small for you?
What? 5'7"?
Oh,
I got
five-
I got my own
Okay.
Reliance of
Okay.
the Traveler.
Okay, if you could read 5.7, just read the whole thing.
5.7, the finished grave. One should raise the grave's surface up to one span, about 23 centimeters above the ground, so that it can be known, visited, and respected, except in countries at war with the Muslims, where it is not raised, but rather concealed so as not to be meddled with. And to make it top flat is better than mounding it. No earth should be added when leveling it to what is excavated from it. It is recommended to sprinkle water over the grave and to put pebbles on it. It is offensive to whiten the grave with plaster. Number 2, to build a cupola or house over it. 3, to put a kulak or perfume on the grave, as it is of no benefit and wastes money, or rose water. Number 4.
Wait, Eric, are they saying that if the body stinks and you can smell it, don't perfume the site?
That's what it's saying, evidently. It's a waste of money.
Wow.
Take the step.
Well, that means they didn't follow Sharia to begin with, right?
Well, how would that be?
Well, you were supposed to bury it so you couldn't smell.
Well, it's going to eventually smell. I mean, it's eventually going to seep up through the ground.
But if it's lower than 6 feet, right?
If it's 6 feet, will do it. It'll keep it from doing that.
But in that
but if
sand, it's
you're-
not going to work, right?
Right. If you're only like 4 feet there in that sand, no, you're going to smell that stuff for months.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Number 4, to place an inscription on it, whether it is the name of the deceased or something other, on a board at the head of the grave or on something else, unless the deceased is a friend of Allah, which is defined, or a religious
So you
scholar.
can do this. You can do this, but you're not supposed to, but you can't.
Right. Yeah, more or less. Yeah. Or a religious scholar, in which case his name is written so that he may be visited and honored. It is not being offensive. And then number 5, to put a pillow or mattress under the deceased.
It's offensive.
Yeah, offensive. Those things that are offensive.
Okay,
I
but
think
wait.
there's more.
If you cannot build a house or cupola over it, so why is there a house or something over Muhammad?
Now
Yes.
that's quit making
Yes.
sense. That's not
That's a
right.
good
Don't be
point.
doing. Don't expose that hypocrisy. You're doing that here.
Yes, there is I would say, mausoleum for Muhammad. Yes, the prophet gets his. Well, he's not really a prophet; he's a messenger, according to the Quran. But yes, I mean, you've got to ask all these questions. It's important. Now, my question: did Muhammad get a pillow? Does he have a mattress, or is he sitting there in a sack? And is he under? I mean, there's a lot of good questions here. Was he actually buried more than 6 feet underground? Yeah.
I wish somebody would go in there and excavate that. I would just love to know what was in it.
Well, the question is he really there?
Yeah.
And if so, can we verify that was? I mean, I don't know if we could actually verify if it was him. I mean, there could be characteristics we could look for. I mean, very large man, and maybe short man.
Well, according to some
White
of
guy.
the pictures, he had big feet, and then yes, he'd probably be bones by now.
If that.
Yeah.
The deterioration, I don't know, because if it's Medina, is it? Yeah, there's a lot of questions. All right, let me get back to this. Is the last section, and I think I need to go back one, but yeah. Let me get this to go back. All right, this I thought was interesting. G5.9. It's offensive for women to visit graves because of their lack of fortitude and excessive grief. So women, don't go to graves because you make noises. That's what they're saying. And this is Muhammad's thing. He didn't like the sound that women made when they grieved, the loud crying. And during his day, they hired professional mourners who would make these loud wailing sounds, and he hated that. So this is from Muhammad. This is definitely in the Sunnah and in the Siras. So in the Hadiths and Siras, that much I know. So that's to say that it's offensive for. Can you imagine, ladies? If you've lost someone, you're not allowed to go visit the place that they're buried. It's offensive. Your keeper, male family member, will not let you go because it's offensive. That's just kind of, the guy can go, but you can't. All right.
Dress up
We're
like
almost.
a guy.
I'm sorry.
Dress up like a guy. I'm sorry.
There you go. And you can get in there and you get out. Yeah. You just got to be quiet while you're there. It's just kind of weird. So it'd be interesting. I mean, the men, I'm curious what would happen if a male dressed in the. Yeah. We have all these cross-dressing going on and being encouraged now. Oh no.
I've heard where the Muslim male has worn, the burqa.
Well, Muhammad set the example by wearing Aisha's clothes, so
that's true.
I mean, it's a perfect example.
Perfect. Yes.
We don't know what he wore, but I can't figure out how this fat guy got into her clothing. I'm still not sure what exactly he wore. I'm aware of what he stole. I can't figure out who it might belong to.
He was short, a fat little person, apparently. White skinned, and I think it was Aisha's night clothes.
When I picture that, I think of like a Danny DeVito type character.
Yeah, after I started hearing midget, that's exactly who I thought of. That's pretty bad. Okay, I'm not saying he's a midget. He's a small person. He's a good actor. He's kind of crass, but yeah, that's the personality. That's the first person I thought of when someone told me he was a midget. Like, okay, that's the only person I could think of. This is the last section in the book of the funeral book. So I'm going to read this piece. It's recommended to console all the relatives of the deceased, except young women. Poor women. Sorry for you. That just kind of, except young women who are not unmarriageable kin, since only her unmarriageable relatives may console her. Console meaning to enjoin steadfastness, encouraged by mentioning the reward in the hereafter, to warn against overburdening oneself with grief, and to pray for forgiveness for the deceased. Again, we're praying for the dead. So you have a purgatory in existence, and it just kind of goes against everything they state. So,
wait a minute. You know something? Okay. This, unless they're a shaheed, dying while killing others, I understood that they go to hell. But at the end times, when the black rock comes alive and all that kind of stuff, they're actually taken out of hell. So maybe hell was just temporary.
So this,
you know what I'm saying? Hello?
I think Paul muted himself. I don't know.
You're right. I'm sorry. You're right. It's a purgatory type situation.
That's I took it according to.
Oops. Sorry, I'm trying to put it up. I can't. Okay, can you
and he's share? Got underwear on, Eric. He's got underwear on.
Can you put up? Can you share to put that out? I'll hit stop sharing. If you use present down below, you can share it. Oh, there it's a little better now that I pulled it out. There you go.
I mean, I can change it.
No, we can all see that now.
Remember, he dyed his hair red. He had acromegaly, a hump on his back. He had a scar on his face.
He was
He
scarred
masked
from
himself
the.
with perfume.
Yeah.
And he had a missing tooth. I didn't get the missing tooth. It was too small. But
Well, we knew about that was from a battle. I mean, the scars and the
yeah,
these are from battles. The teeth were missing from that. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
he's
these are
going.
most battle injuries. There it is.
And he's going to Isha's bedroom.
Wow. The red henna, yeah. So was he buried? If he existed, if he's real, there's a lot of questions. Still, I mean, who comes up with these laws? Who comes up with all this stuff about how to pray? Because it's not any place in the Sunnah. It's not any place in the Sharia, any place but in the Sharia. People come up and tell you how to pray. That's how you learn to pray. But again, if it's not in their scriptures, any place, not even a guideline of how to pray is any place in their scriptures, it's in their law. I have a problem with that. All right, let's get back to this, and I'm hoping to finish this soon because, to be honest, I am tired of talking about death. All right, we're almost done. Thank you, God. All right, it's offensive to sit for. That is for the extended family of the deceased to be seated and gather in one place for the people to come and console them, because it's an innovation that the prophet did not do, nor those after him. It's offensive for either men or women. If one is absent and then arrives after a period, one should one should console or be consoled. It's recommended to say to a Muslim who has lost a Muslim relative, pay attention, guys, see if you see anything odd here. It's recommended to say to a Muslim who has lost a Muslim relative, may Allah greaten your reward, perfect your consolation, and forgive your deceased. To a Muslim who has lost a non-Muslim relative, may Allah greaten your reward and perfect your consolation. So who's getting blessed here?
Not the person who's dead. That's for sure. That's
not the non-Muslim. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The only one that gets blessed here is Muslim.
And to a non-Muslim who has lost a Muslim relative, may Allah perfect your consolation and forgive. You're not getting any protection. And he's not going to forgive your deceased. But we're going to say it anyways. Allah doesn't like the people who don't like him. So it's kind of, and again, these are recommended things. So you can appear to be nice.
Yeah, so you can get more rewards for every relative that dies. I mean, what?
Yes. Yep. This is kind of nutty. Goes on, it's permissible to weep before someone dies, but better not to afterwards. That's a tough one. It's unlawful to eulogize. This is interesting. It's unlawful to eulogize the dead, lament in a loud and raised voice. This is what Muhammad was against. The eulogize part surprised me. Slap one's cheeks, rend one's garments, or dishevel one's hair. You know what the reasoning is? Because it might cost money. It's recommended for distant relatives and neighbors to prepare enough food for the deceased. This will make sense. Close family relatives to suffice them for a day or night and to urge them to eat. Makes a lot of sense. For the deceased family to prepare food and gather people over it is an unpraiseworthy innovation. Wait a minute. Didn't they just say it's recommended for distant relatives and neighbors to prepare food? But you don't gather together to eat that food. You just give that food to that person. Leave them alone. That's a sad, hard thing. I think at that point, I mean, death is hard for people in different ways, but it's especially hard after people are left alone. I know that's when it hit my dad hard after mom died. All right, we are done with this. Now, I do have some good news. And I was just sharing it earlier. Let me see if I can show it. And I have a new book coming out. And this is the new book cover. Can everybody see that? It's a new devotional. Hebrews, a devotional on the supremacy of Christ. So that should be coming out pretty soon. And I have another one called 1 Corinthians, Paul's letter to the wayward saints of Corinth. So that should be, hoping they'll come out in the next month or two. Trying something new and how I publish these. So if this works better, maybe I'll be changing how I've been publishing for a while. I'm kind of getting excited about that. I am so happy we are done with covering the Book of the Dead. Yet we are talking about a death cult, and I think that Eric is right. This is definitely a death cult. I didn't expect to get into a topic of, that this is just, but to talk about purgatory, I didn't expect to get into that. I expect we can constantly get into Gnosticism. Kind of have to expect that. All throughout, anytime we're talking about Islam, we're talking about a Gnostic faith. Secret knowledge gets you secret things. Privileged knowledge gets you privileged things.
I actually heard that one of the people on my Facebook list, or somebody in a group, said that purgatory did exist, but then now it doesn't. So I just,
Say that again. What was that again, Darcy? Purgatory did exist, but now it doesn't.
Somebody saying that purgatory did exist, but then now it doesn't.
I kind of get that. So the concept of Abraham's bosom is the closest thing I can think of that would be equated to that concept, where Abraham's bosom was emptied, and that's where you had the dead walking around in the time of Christ. And that is the closest thing I can think of to an actual concept of purgatory. Only they were waiting for Christ to come. That's the only concept I can think of like that. I don't know if you're aware of anything else, Eric.
I've researched it, and a lot of the writing, or a lot of the ideas for purgatory they namely come from St. Thomas Aquinas, or they were perfected by St. Thomas Aquinas. But when I looked at trying to find the Bible verses, and my understanding is he used a lot of the writings of the early church fathers as his basis for it. But there were a few verses that they derived this teaching from. Let's see here. Purgatory, what happens? Where's one? What do you send? This is not it. Where's the idea come from? Here we go. It comes from, okay, yeah, here it is. Oh, that's right. It's from Second Maccabees. So that it comes from an apocryphal book from the intertestament period. So, if you go to, let's see, the tradition for praying for the dead goes back to the time of Christ, described an example in second. Oh, okay. Since hell is a permanent condemnation, the practice of praying for the dead logically means that there must be some transitional state in which person who dies is saved, but has to go through some form of purification before entering into the full joy of heaven. And then it says early church fathers such as, I didn't know Josephus was an early church father.
Yeah, he's not.
No,
Josephus is not.
Origen, who said, "He who comes to be saved comes to be saved through fire." Ambrose, who talked of a baptism of fire, all spoke of a temporary punishment through which those who died in a state of grace had to go through prior. So again, this is so. See,
I'm familiar with Origen's works, so I just kind of.
What they're doing is he's accessing the teachings and the writings of the early church fathers, and that are not explicit, oh, by the way, and extrapolating from that this idea of a realm called purgatory.
I haven't done a lot of the research in about 20 some plus years.
Well, I had to do it when I was in one of the classes in my doctoral program. I think it was systematic theology. Was one of the I can't. It doesn't matter. I remember I had to research and write on that idea as far as its origins and applications.
Well, we have covered a lot today, and I want to say thank you for getting through a tough section. Next week should be rather entertaining because we are talking about zakat, and that is how the money will be spent and how it's to be. Anything you can think about this collection. Now, is zakat and how it's used? If you haven't heard this stuff, it will shock you. You can think about all the current uses of that you'll hear about for Muslims, how they're collecting money and the purposes that they're using it for. I am talking about financing jihad. I am talking about things you're not allowed to use. When Muslims hear of an organization like let's say a student organization, they say, "Oh, we're a zakat organization," and it's a student organization or it's a school. Guess what? You can't use that for that. So they're trying to tell people they're a jihadi organization so they can receive money. So you have to pay attention. This is one of the things you can discover when you look at ISNA's past magazines, and their current sites that you look at where they say there's zakat organizations. By the way, CARE doesn't qualify unless they are Hamas in America. So keep thinking about those. Thank you, everybody. God bless. I really appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Any last words? Oh, God. This has been I'm so glad to get this part done because to me it was dreary. God bless everybody. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night. God bless.
God bless. Good night.